Let's return to the attack on the author Salman Rushdie. A man has been arrested, but the motive is not clear yet. There is no indication that the attack is linked to the fatwa against the Salman in Iran. So let's just examine what exactly is a fatwa. We can speak to Akbar Ahmed. He's an author and chair of Islamic Studies at the American University in Washington. And you also interviewed Sir Salman just after the Satanic Verses was published. Let's just start off with this idea for our viewers to help them understand what a fatwa is in the most basic terms.
In the most basic terms, it is simply an opinion. The situation is that if it is an opinion given by someone as eminent and as Ayatollah Khomeini, who was then alive and issued the fatwa, it assumes the importance or significance of a legal document, which it is not. It's not issued after hearing evidence, hearing pro and con arguments for and against the case and so on. It's just an opinion. Of course, because Khomeini issued it and then died shortly after, it became frozen in time, and that complicates things for a lot of people who follow Khomeini and accept his judgments on Islam. And that's where the predicament arises.
So that's the most basic explanation. When it comes to what Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khomeini called for in this fatwa, was there a call for the life of Sir Salman Rushdie?
He was put up a note saying that if this happens, if someone insults, abuses the Prophet, the Holy Prophet of Islam and his family, what would the punishment be? And he said that would be death. And that became the basis of the fatwa. Now, I do want to point out, this does not have a Quranic base. It does not have precedence in Islam as such, because Islam rests very heavily in concepts of compassion and mercy. This is not just a cliche, but it rests very heavily in that. And there are many, many examples from the life of the Prophet himself, who is supposed to be involved in this, who's being protected by the Muslims. And that is why this has a very emotive significance for Muslims. It's important to understand that this argument, and I've been involved in this over the last few decades, it's not getting better because we continue to see people being attacked and killed. And in this recent episode, this terrible episode at Chautauqua, a place where I've lectured at, and it's a beautiful American institution, great campus, lakes and walks and so on, and great, very civilized audiences. So I'm horrified to think of what this would do for Chautauqua and the future. But for the Muslims, and there will be a backlash against Muslims, particularly those living in the West. I am anxious and fearful because they will then be caught up. And for the Muslim world as a whole, and it's important to point out, the Muslim world is not a monolith. The problem is this, that for Muslims, these sacred figures will remain sacred, whatever happens. So they are not going to change. And if the West is not able to understand that, and not able to understand that Muslims living in the West must respect the rules and laws of the West. And this is the great gap I see in this debate between the West and the world of Islam, putting it very simply. So if the Muslim leaders, who should now, after this incident, be aware that this Islamophobia backlash will grow and will increase, they must instruct Muslims, particularly those going to the West, that they must learn to respect and live within the rules and regulations of Western societies. Similarly, Western leaders need to understand that for all the pressures they put on traditional society, not just Muslims, these societies still have great respect for their sacred figures, their sacred gods or human beings or symbols. And this dialogue, this great dialogue that must take place, has not been taking place, because for the last several decades, we are seeing people being killed, completely innocent people, a translator here, a publisher there, and it goes on and on and on, and reminds me of Einstein, who says you keep doing the same thing again and again, and you expect a different result. So I think this is a moment, it's a terrible moment, it's a tragic moment, but it's a moment that should force us to step back and contemplate and say, where are we going as a global society?
Akbar.
And this is where the leaders on both sides must act with maturity, wisdom, and compassion.
Akbar Ahmed, thank you very much for talking us through that. Yes, the translator in Japan was also killed, but just to stress that at the moment we do not know the motive behind the attack on Sir Salman Rushdie. We do not know why he was attacked. There is no link to the fatwa. Just to absolutely stress that his condition is that he remains on a ventilator, and of course we will keep you updated.